Hi, my name is Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to talk how the attempts to suppress information on the plight of the NHS and other healthcare workers in the UK seems to have gone peak stupid, culminating in what I would describe as the worst PR move a care business could possibly take: sacking an MP for speaking out. But first, if you'd like to be notified for daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, we've all seen the footage and testimony from people in the NHS and care homes about the woeful lack of protective equipment and measures being adopted. And I mean, we've all seen it, because even those who would just focus on the right-wing media, even they at times have talked about this. And the only reason there isn't an absolute avalanche, a deluge of such news, is because NHS bosses, as well as care home bosses, have threatened staff with disciplinary action if they speak out about it. Which is a major reason I do not engage in the clap for carers each Thursday. As well-intentioned as it clearly is on the part of those who engage, it's hollow. In fact, to me, it's sickening, because we're not applauding their efforts, we're applauding the dreadful way they are being treated. Whether or not that is in the intention, and I accept for most people clapping it is not, of course, the intention. Healthcare workers in this country are being forced to face unnecessary risks. Of course, there is an inherent risk in the work that they are doing right now, even if it was provided with adequate equipment. But the government, as well as healthcare bosses, have a duty to minimise that risk, because if you minimise that risk, you reduce the number of people who are dying. And in fact, those healthcare bosses have a legal duty to minimise that risk, whether or not ministers do. Because there is a clear breach here of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, unless the government have suspended that for the time being without me noticing, emergency powers and all that. And as if that weren't bad enough, any healthcare worker who speaks out about this criminally negligent situation that either they or their colleagues is facing is hit with disciplinary action. One NHS doctor, for example, who spoke out has already been suspended. Nice one. A highly skilled guy who is trying to save lives has been told to go home, put their feet up, while the talentless worm who seems to be seeking to take those lives carries on full pay. I'm not applauding that. But then one care home pulled a bit of a PR disaster this last week. Nadia Whittome, who is the 24-year-old MP, who was actually looking for a job before she won the seat in December's general election, so her first little foray into a political career, decided to do her bit during this crisis and work in a care home, a place she'd worked before, before she became an MP, so she has experience of working in a care home. Now here's the thing. As appalling as it generally is to threaten staff with disciplinary action simply for speaking out about the lack of PPE, this is just plain dumb. I mean, actually stupid. Because if you were a care home boss and you didn't want your staff to speak out about PPE shortages, so you're threatening with disciplinary action and all the rest of it, why the hell would you be moronic enough to hire a Labour MP? I mean, come on. What did they think was going to happen? Did they think the Labour MP was going to keep quiet because they didn't want to lose their temporary minimum wage job? A minimum wage that she was donating to a COVID charity anyway. What? How did that go through their head, really? Because of course not. That's not happening. And the PPE situation was pretty dire at the home she was working at, run by a company called Extra Care, which, good news, is now splashed all over the national news, but not for the reasons it would like. And as you'd expect from a Labour MP, she duly spoke out about it. And the thing is, for me, at this point, no blame would fall on Extra Care as such for the fact that in their care homes there's not adequate PPE, because this is a failure of government. Now, sure, if we had a government who were making adequate PPE available, then I'm sure these private providers would still try and cut costs, and then they wouldn't, some of them at least, would not be providing enough PPE to their workers. So at that point, some of them would absolutely be culpable. But they don't have the access to the easy and affordable PPE that the government should be making available. That is the fault of ministers, not the individual care homes. But this thick as mince care company, having knowingly employed a young idealistic MP to their ranks, then decided that the appropriate course of action was to sack her. I mean, that's just plain stupid. Because one, you're not going to stop her talking about it. She's an MP. You don't silence them. She can ask a question in the House of Commons, for goodness sake. And you actually just make the situation far worse, because now it's going to be reported. You know, it's basically amplified the message that she was giving. You know, how ridiculous. Because, yeah, that's not going to get your company's name splashed across the national media as an employer that willfully risks the lives of its workers and customers and sacks anyone who tries to draw attention to it. So well done there. Now she's made an issue of it and is asking other care workers to contact her anonymously with examples of such negligence. And her initial speaking out about this, which is on Newsnight, I think, wasn't going to get a wider circulation because there's so many people talking about the lack of PPE in the NHS. The media's not going to focus on the youngest MP in the Commons talking about it. But they are now. They are now. And I would consider this, if I were any healthcare boss, not just this healthcare boss, any healthcare boss. We're in extraordinary times at the moment. The normal rules seem to be suspended. But that will pass, and we will have some calm again at some point until the government engineer another disaster for us all. And when the dust settles, attention will have to be drawn to the Health and Safety at Work Act, which has clearly been breached. And I would also suggest that these healthcare trusts and companies almost certainly have whistleblowing policies in order to comply with their legal duties. Now, whistleblowing laws in the UK are not as strong as they might be, but they exist. Now, I don't know what the individual policies will state, of course, but I'd be suggesting that any bosses playing along with ministers at the moment will be opening themselves up later on for legal action. And to say nothing of the media campaigns against them once the public starts seeing what's going on. Because this same media who work hard to protect the image of Conservative ministers, who are ultimately responsible for this mess, still want to sell newspapers. And nothing sells newspapers like a bit of public fury. So they'll turn on the bosses who suppressed this information, giving a complete pass to the government and putting all the blame on the healthcare bosses. And ministers will do nothing to help. They won't appreciate the fact that you showed solidarity with them during this time. This is the nature of Hobson's choice, I suppose. You know, and I guess the reason why these healthcare bosses are disciplining much needed staff for speaking out is because ministers have told them to. And pissing off ministers means not attracting public money for their profiteering rackets. But they also open themselves up to being thrown under the bus by the press, if no one else, in need of some outrage to sell papers when they've run out of other things to be outraged at. But again, you can put that problem down to the privatisation of healthcare in the UK. Were there no such thing as government grants for care as such, only public care providers, you know, run and paid for from public funds, then this situation would not exist. But this, you know, I would say, hopefully this dreadful state of affairs does fully explain why I refuse to engage in any government-led applause for the NHS on a Thursday night. Much better appreciation for the NHS and care workers would come, I would suggest, from spending that time contacting your MP to ask them, regardless of which party they represent, what they personally have done to ensure that NHS staff in their constituency are being given the right equipment and the help they need to get through this difficult period in their working lives, and also what that MP has done personally to ensure that all constituents, if they are in a care home or even in need of medical care, are getting access to the care that they should be getting as well. I would have thought that was a better use of 5 minutes. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.